Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Are you spending too much time managing your Airbnb guest communications? With Aviva IQ's easy-to-use automated messaging service, your guest communications go on autopilot so you can go back to living your life. Get your free Aviva IQ account at www.avivaiq.com.
Welcome everybody, another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Last week I was all by myself because I had some internet troubles, but today I'm very happy to be hosting this podcast with the one and only David Jacoby. David, welcome. How are you?
Hey, I missed you last week, Jasper. I was up all night. You didn't call. You didn't write.
I know. Were you worried about me?
I was so worried. I'm like, what happened, Jasper?
Well, I'm still alive. I just got back from a short trip to El Nido, which is in the Philippines. It's really an amazing place. Did some scuba diving. Neato. Yeah. Did some scuba diving, just chilling out on some beaches. Pretty sweet.
All right. Well, glad you had fun there, and glad you're back to somewhere where we can connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm going to be in Taipei for the next 2 months. I just arrived, so I'll have a stable internet connection, which makes my life a lot easier.
Awesome. All right.
So I heard there's some stuff going on in California. There's wildfires and stuff.
Yes, it is pretty crazy here. It really is. It's serious. This is probably the biggest fire in the greater Bay Area, Northern California, in a long time. There were the famous Oakland Hills fires many years ago, and apparently this is worse than that. And even here in San Francisco, you can smell it. It's pretty bad. My wife, a couple nights ago, she asked me, she's like, do you smell smoke? And I hadn't. And then I started sniffing, and it was like, wow, I really can't smell it. So I looked all over the house, see if our house was on fire. And then we opened up the door, and it was even stronger. So I started walking up and down the block, seeing if any of our neighbors' houses were on fire. And I couldn't believe it was coming from miles away, from over the water, up in Marin, even more north. But the winds are pretty strong. The fire's strong. The winds are strong. And people are being advised to stay inside here in San Francisco. But, enough about here in San Francisco. It's really devastating what's happening up north. Almost 20 people, I heard, have died already, and just, homes are being destroyed. So it is a big deal.
Yeah, I'm reading here that at least 1,500 homes and structures have been destroyed by a series of 17 fires across 115,000 acres of land. So that's a pretty large area. Airbnb has opened up their open homes program for those who are affected by the fires. This is the 6th time that they use the open homes feature this year. Just a week or so ago, they opened it up after the terrible event that happened in Las Vegas. So it's the 6th time they opened it up. People can participate. If you just Google Airbnb Open Homes Program, then you'll be able to find the link. So people can open up their homes from October 9th to October 31st. And there's already a good amount of people who've opened up their homes. So always good to see that there's people out there who want to help.
Yes, it's great. They did a great job moving quickly on this. The fires started happening Sunday night. By Monday afternoon, the announcement had already gone out, and they were getting the word out to hosts. I think this is wonderful what Airbnb does. It doesn't, they implemented it once a while ago, and then they started implementing it for other things. I think they get a little too much credit compared to the actual hosts. All they're doing is saying, hey, if people want to stay for free, you can stay for free now. Ta-da! And it's the hosts who should be really getting a lot of the credit. It'd be cool if Airbnb maybe gave some discount or credit or coupon or something to the hosts who do this, because they are giving up actual paying guests potentially. So a real shout out to the Bay Area hosts who have graciously opened up their homes to people who need it, as well as Las Vegas and Houston and Florida and all the other places where it's been happening.
Yeah, you make a good point. I guess Airbnb could offer some travel credit to the hosts who are opening up their homes, or maybe they can offer them to forgo the 3% fee for a number of bookings. I think that would be a great gesture.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that they can do, some token, some gesture, as you said. But the world really seems to be falling apart. I was speaking with a vacation rental management company in Barbados today, and I was asking, how are you doing from Irma and from the other hurricanes? I hope everything's okay. And she goes, well, we weren't hit as bad as other places like St. John's. But enough about me. How are you doing up in San Francisco with the fires? But between earthquakes in Mexico and hurricanes and fires, something weird's going on in the world right now, Jasper.
Yeah, well, there's a typhoon coming up here in Taipei, so I might get my share of natural disasters as well soon. Let's talk about WeWork. Airbnb has partnered with WeWork, and WeWork is it's kind of the Airbnb for shared office space. I would say, although it works a little bit different. I think the idea is you pay a certain amount of money per month, and then you get an office space somewhere. You get a desk basically. And I didn't realize this was WeWork has turned into a pretty big company. They received a $4.4 billion investment from SoftBank, and I just looked on Crunchbase to see how much funding they've received in total. I mean, this company was founded in 2011, so that's it's like 3 years after Airbnb, and they have raised almost $10 billion, and most of the money coming from SoftBank, but plenty of investments from other companies as well, and that kind of shocked me. That's a lot of money. They must be valued at somewhere around like $15 to $20 billion, which is not that much less than Airbnb itself. Like Airbnb is probably valued around 25 to 30 billion. Did you know that WeWork was getting so big?
Yeah, they've been getting a lot of investor money. They are one of the prized, as people call them, unicorns, which is they're valued at over $1 billion, and now it's definitely well over $1 billion. One point of clarification, they are less the Airbnb of office space and more of a business that gets spaces all over the country, if not the world, and you can go in and you can rent a space out if you want a place to work. But it's all owned or leased by this one company that manages it, as opposed to there's other sites that are getting popular, like Breather is one of the more popular ones that is really more the Airbnb model, where it's local people maybe have an extra office space and they want to rent that out to someone, like renting out a room on Airbnb. So just a slight clarification on the difference there.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying. So Airbnb and WeWork confirmed their partnership. They didn't discuss any details, but I imagine the way it will work is that if you stay at an Airbnb, you'll be able to probably rent a desk at one of the WeWork spaces for, I imagine it's probably like a day or maybe even like half a day or a couple days. And then I imagine you get like a pretty good rate. Is that what you envision as well?
Yes, and that's what you can do anyway. So you don't need to necessarily have a WeWork membership to work at a WeWork space for a day. Like they have different plans. You could pay a monthly fee and you get a space wherever you travel if they have a WeWork office there, or you could just dip in for a day and pay a one-time daily fee. So it almost sounds like a cool advertising deal for WeWork to suddenly be promoted within Airbnb as you're going through the booking process. Maybe if you've selected your business traveler, then it'll serve up the option while you're checking out if you want a WeWork space too. I don't know if you get a special discount if you do it through Airbnb or not, or I imagine Airbnb is getting some sort of commission on that. So it definitely seems like a win-win and does make it a little easier for the business traveler.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you got to get a discount, right? Because otherwise, yeah, it's nice for Airbnb if they get a commission. But I think if they offer an incentive, then way more people would actually use it.
Right. I imagine way more people will use it anyways, because not everyone's familiar with WeWork. And if they're on Airbnb making a reservation and suddenly it says, hey, do you want a place to have, free Wi-Fi and a desk and a printer and other, facilities? Go and book it. That alone, just the fact that you can do it within your confirmation process on Airbnb, that alone could be a benefit. So I think more details will come out.
It makes a lot of sense. I wasn't so familiar with this WeWork thing, but I actually rented. Once I was in Paris, I rented an Airbnb, and then I had to record a podcast, and the Wi-Fi wasn't strong enough, and so I was kind of like in a rush, and so I went on Airbnb and I found a different apartment, and I quickly messaged the host. I was like, "Hey, can I? Do you have good Wi-Fi? Can I rent your place for one night? I just need it for a couple hours." And then, within an hour or so, I was at the other Airbnb doing the podcast.
I'm really doing a podcast. Can I rent it? Seriously, that's the only reason I want it for a couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally in a situation where I was like, okay, I need strong Wi-Fi within, like an hour or two. I wasn't sure where to go. I was in Paris, but I guess I could have checked out the WeWork. But then, for the recording, I kind of need the space to be quiet, and also I need to be allowed to speak. Like I imagine a lot of these co-working spaces, I've worked at a lot of them, you're usually supposed to be quiet so that you don't disturb any of the other people.
Yeah, they have a combination of open spaces as well as private offices if you want the absolute quiet.
What do you think about the idea of adding Airbnb listings where you rent out a spare room with a desk just for a couple hours or for the day?
Sure. For a couple hours is kind of weird. It's not really the Airbnb model, so I think they would have to really expand the filters and search options. And is it really going to be significantly less than if you rent for a day? But again, that's what other sites are trying to make the niche for. So as I mentioned earlier, Breather is just one that comes to mind that I've come across, and I feel like there are a few others. And that really is focused on you need an office space for a couple hours. You want to either have a big team retreat and have a big meeting, or you're just traveling somewhere and need a place for a few hours. So I think there's other companies trying to fit that specific niche.
Right. Well, in any case, it's clear that Airbnb is really targeting the business traveler. Earlier the business travel ready feature came out, and now the partnership with WeWork. So it's clear they're looking for growth in that area. Talking about investments, Airbnb's major rival in China is called a company called Tujia. We've talked about it before. They've just raised $300 million, and they're now valued at $1.5 billion. And they are looking to expand overseas. So what are your thoughts?
Yes, that's a huge announcement on their end. They really are ramping it up for the Chinese market. It's an area that I know Airbnb has been trying to get a strong foothold in. It's been a big focus of theirs for a while, to varying degrees of success. I know they've had a couple trips and falls. I think the person who was overseeing that had left about a year ago or so. And there is some other competition there like Tujia. And with this additional raise, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It reminds me a little bit of with Uber trying to make it into China. And if you're not a local Chinese company, it's a lot harder, and oftentimes the local one will win.
Yeah, I think the Chinese government definitely prefers the Chinese companies, and probably put some sort of restrictions on foreign companies. So I think it's always hard to really do well in China. And so, we'll see how it goes. But in any case, Tujia now has 650,000 listings versus Airbnb apparently has 4 million now. But with this investment, there's a good chance that they'll be growing quite a bit. And if they manage to grow overseas, then, Tujia could actually become maybe even as big as Airbnb, because China is a huge market. There's 1.3 billion people there. So if they manage to at some point drive out all the competition, like what happened to Uber, then that could be pretty big. They have some a lot of listings in Japan as well, and if they manage to take a bigger market share in some of the other Asian countries. Because the Asian market is huge, especially if you include India as well. And by the way, there was an article about India, and Airbnb is actually growing very fast in India. And I was kind of thinking about the differences between China and India, because in terms of populations, they're almost the same now. I was looking at the population growth. Like 20 years ago, it was still a very big difference. It was way more people in China than in India. But India has really caught up, and there's now almost as many people in India as in China. So India is definitely a very interesting market for Airbnb, and I think it's probably easier to get a lot of traction in India than in China, I guess, because the economy is a little bit more open, and as well, I think a lot more people in India are a bit more Western focused. A lot more people speak English. But then on the other hand, India is a very poor country still. I was looking at the average income. They're listed around the 140th richest country in the world out of 200. So that's pretty low at about $1,700 average income per year, which is very little, especially compared to, for example, the US stands at about 57,000. But yeah, they're growing very fast in India. We're seeing rates of like 200-300, some areas 500%. So I guess for Airbnb, India would be a good bet to try and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Travel within India is increasing significantly. Just business travel and leisure travel from locals, as well as it being more of a popular tourist destination, as well as medical tourism is getting popular there. People going to, get some surgery or something. They can do it significantly cheaper there than in other places. There was a company that was called the Airbnb of India for a while, which is called Stayzilla. And I remember at the beginning of the year, they had announced that they were either sunsetting, they were stopping, or maybe pivoting. And I just checked out their website, and the website is still up. So I'm not sure what the change was. It seemed like things weren't going well for them. So Airbnb definitely is filling a big gap from what was being done locally there for a bit. So there's huge room to grow, and I don't know if there's much competition for them there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can definitely see Airbnb becoming pretty big in India. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, well, one thing also going back to the China market, not only is there competition for travel within China, but all the local Chinese who are traveling overseas, that is a huge market as well. And if Tujia gets it right and really grows as the trusted spot for locals, they can easily expand for listings outside of China too, and they'll get that local Chinese traveler. So they really have a strong advantage to grow within the greater Asian countries and then beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep an eye out and see how they grow compared to Airbnb. Like I said, right now it's like 650,000 versus 4 million. So Airbnb still has a big advantage in terms of size, but we'll see how it goes.
Jasper, those million, that's for 4 million around the world, right? So
that's
I don't know if 2G is really focused on everywhere yet, like Airbnb is. So I wonder what the apples to apples comparison is in China and other countries near China. It's probably a lot closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Hosts, I am having so much fun running my Airbnb and hosting travelers from all around the world. I have to admit though, ensuring my guests receive all the details about their stay on time can be stressful and overwhelming. Recently, I learned about a cool new service called Aviva IQ. Aviva IQ automates, personalizes, and delivers my guest communications automatically, so I don't have to. Now I can relax knowing my guests are informed and happy. Did I mention Aviva IQ is free? Get your life back at www.avivaiq.com.
One news item that's been in the headlines a lot has to do with somebody in Florida. An Airbnb host in Florida had installed hidden cameras in his Airbnb. And there was a couple staying at the Airbnb, and they were looking at the smoke detector, and it looked a little weird. So they had a closer look, and it turned out there was a camera hidden inside the smoke detector. And later, after the police came, they discovered a second camera. Now, obviously, Airbnb has banned this host. The police arrested him. In his defense was that he was using the camera for private type of events, and he didn't have them turned on when the Airbnb guests were staying there. But then the police noted that if that was really the case, then why did he hide the cameras? It sounds very, very shady to me.
Yeah, it definitely sounds a little fishy, and it's a bummer that these stories keep popping up, and the press loves pouncing on them. They don't talk about there's a million vacation rental stays, if not more, every night. These random outliers, of course, get all the press. As you've said before, Jasper, you don't read an article that there were 999,000 wonderful stays last night and nothing happened. So it is kind of annoying. Yes, these things happen, and you need to watch out for stuff like that. And I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, the reason I want to bring it up is because I read in the article that according to the Airbnb Terms of Service, a host has to disclose any surveillance devices in the home. And you mentioned to me that you were planning to install like a smart lock and also like a doorbell with a camera inside. And so, the interesting question is what counts as a surveillance device? And, how do you disclose it? Do you put, I guess you could just write it in your listing. But I could imagine that, some Airbnb guests, Airbnb guests are notorious for not reading the Airbnb listing description, first of all. So a lot of people will probably not read it, even if you mention it in the description. But what are your thoughts on the camera and the doorbell?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. It is something I've been looking into. I'm going to get a smart lock and looking into the different options between that as well as the doorbells and the video doorbell. So Ring is a popular one, at least here in the United States. I'm looking into August, which has both a combination smart lock and keypad as well as a doorbell. And it's a one-way video, so I can see them. They can't see me. So if I'm traveling somewhere and one of my guests can't get in, I can see who it is. And then by just pressing a button, have the door automatically unlock for them. So that's pretty cool. And that's the benefit. That's why I want to do it. I don't want to have to rely on an actual key that sometimes a guest might lose or the previous guest might forget to put back in the lockbox. I can see, there is a slippery slope. Like, where do you draw the line? I can see a guest thinking, oh, now not only do they know when I've arrived, but they're always knowing when I'm coming and going, and maybe that's an invasion of privacy. I think there at least one clear line is if this is outside for the home, it's security and protection and not an invasion of privacy versus having a camera that's actually, of course, in the house, a hidden camera in the bedroom. But needing to put that in the listing, I think that's fair. And I have no problem once I get my lock to say, for your security, we have, keyless lock and doorbell, video doorbell to make sure no unwanted guests are there. I think it's also helpful to protect from additional guests coming. You rent it out to one person and all of a sudden they're having 10 people coming in, which is against maybe your house rules. So it'll protect you against that. And someone who might want to do something like that, if you advertise that you have this, now they'll know better and they'll maybe go for another listing instead. So yeah, I'll keep you in the loop of how my decision-making process goes and what I end up installing.
So how does this video doorbell work exactly? Let's say I ring the doorbell. Do you get like a notification on your iPhone or something? And then you turn on the app and you see me standing in front of the door, and then you have a button in your iPhone where you can open the door. Is that how it works? Yeah,
that's exactly it. So with August specifically, it's connected to the lock where you can open the door. There are other competitors out there, like Ring is the real popular one, that has a couple of cooler, I think, bells and whistles on the doorbell, but you can't unlock the door. It's just kind of the doorbell and video app in that regard. So I'm looking for something a little more integrated. If anyone has other ideas, please let me know. So one thing also, in addition to them ringing the bell, there's a motion sensor. So if there's any movement going on by your door, you'll get a notice.
That's pretty useful. I really like the idea that you can control everything remotely and that the doorbell is connected to the lock.
That's the biggie, because there's separate doorbell companies and separate lock companies. So getting one that's connected is really the next step for the vacation rental host.
Awesome. Well, we are already talking for 25 minutes, so unfortunately we have now come to the end of this episode. It's funny because before we started recording, he asked me if I had any questions from Airbnb hosts this week, and I actually have a lot of them because you were thinking we didn't have enough content to discuss. But when you and me get talking, David, it never stops.
Amazing how time flies like that, Jasper. Hey, one other thing, I just wanted to give a shout out to anyone who's heading to the Vacation Rental Managers Association conference in Orlando next week. I will be there as well and would love to meet any listeners here. So if I could just send out my email, it's my name, david@hostfully.com. Please let me know if you're going to be there, and I'd love to meet up for a drink.
Awesome. And with that, we have come to the end of the episode. And David, good luck at the conference. Wish I could join you, but it's a bit far away from me right now. But good luck there, and looking forward to hearing some insights. And for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And of course, we'll be back on Monday with a new episode. And next Friday, we'll be discussing the news. So I hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.